Hey everybody, Adam Silverman here from Muletown Digital. Hope you're doing great. Today I want to talk about Web Maintenance 101 and the 5 essential items to maintaining your website that you do not want to miss. Missing any one of these things could cause really big problems for your business. I would also like to kind of start this by talking about the concept that websites are never done. People always think like, oh, I built my website and I'm done. It should never be done. Almost every business in the world relies on using their website for marketing purposes. And if you don't keep your website updated, it doesn't really help you. So if your website is a business tool for your business, which it should be, and if it's not, you need to talk to either us or someone that can help you turn it into a tool for your business. But your website should be constantly being updated. And so maintenance becomes a really, really important thing for your business because without it, things break, things fall apart, and you're not able to drive your business forward. The first major thing to talk about are regular website backups. A lot of people assume that their hosting company is providing backups for their website. Most of them do. However, most of them provide backups on their platform. So if something goes wrong with their platform and you can't get in there, and the only backup you have is the one that's on their platform, you can end up in a situation, and we've seen it, where you cannot either roll your site back or get a download to move. So making sure that you not only have a scheduled set of backups, but that you have them somewhere that's not your hosting provider, that's a really, really important thing to have for your business. We typically recommend at bare minimum a daily backup. Some places will do weekly or monthly. I think daily is the right thing. If you happen to be running an e-commerce solution like WooCommerce or any other like Laravel application or any custom commerce application, Shopify, I think, handles this internally. But if you're running on a customized platform, you probably should be backing up your website every time there's a transaction. Because what could happen is you could sell a whole bunch of things, have a website problem that requires you to roll back to the version that was backed up in the morning, and now you've lost all those orders. So you want to make sure if you're running any sort of e-commerce or subscription that you're running incremental backups. That's going to really protect you from having massive problems. The second big thing is looking at security updates and monitoring. Particularly with WordPress, we call this a tune-up. And a tune-up is where we go in there and strategically update the WordPress core, the WordPress theme, if there's an update for the theme, and also the plugins. The thing is, particularly with WordPress, you don't want to just go in there and start pushing update, because a lot of times there are software patches going out for WordPress uses plugins to add functionality. And all of those plugins tap into what's called the WordPress core, which is basically the core set of code that makes WordPress function. If two of those plugins call the same functions in a different way, and one of them does it in a way the other one doesn't like, you can end up with plugin conflicts. And so understanding how to make those updates is really important. But what's potentially worse is not updating at all, because any open source code, meaning code that gets contributed to by lots of different people, can have easily security holes and things injected into that code base. And so you want to be really smart about making sure that you do keep this stuff updated. We've seen WordPress sites that have not been touched for a year come in and they will be completely infected with malware, meaning that somebody injected code somewhere that when they go to a certain page on your website, they get shipped off. We've seen some really nasty hacks. We've had people have inappropriate images of unspeakable things on their homepage. We've seen where there were outbound links to websites, like where we were working with a religious affiliated company or organization, and there were links going to very bad places. So you really want to make sure that you stay updated. so that you can avoid having malware. You also want to be scanning your website for malware frequently and make sure that if it does come up, you get rid of it, because if you don't, they open a door and then everything can start coming in that door. Before you know it, your website is doing something bad. And while that is annoying, you can lose credibility really fast if your website gets hacked and people start coming there to book an appointment with you or something, and they're being redirected. Like, that's a very bad taste in the mouth for a prospect. So making sure that you're malware free is really important. Number 3 is performance optimization. A lot of hosting servers or hosting providers don't implement any sort of caching by default. Caching helps the website store files it's going to frequently go get, which makes the website load much faster for the end user. If you're not running caching, they have to load every single file every single time, and it makes your website run really slowly. Doing things like minifying your files and things like that kind of get off into programming land, but you definitely want to make sure that you're watching for your speed. We have other videos talking about the importance of speed optimizing. Check your site on Google Page Speed Insights and see how it's doing. Performance, when you launch a website, 6 months later, it will not perform the same. You'll have added images, you'll have added content, plugins update, things change. If you don't keep up with the performance optimization side, no matter how well that thing was built the day it went out live, it's going to eventually run into all kinds of weird issues. And over time, typically, websites will slow down. It's like running a car and not changing the oil. Over time, it just, like, everything gets mucky and thick, and it just slows the production down. It happens to websites all the time. If you don't stay on top of it, eventually it will break you down. So make sure that you are watching for speed loss, not just from a breakdown standpoint, but slow website, lose users, right? And obviously you're not having a website to not have people visit, right? We want the traffic, we want the good experience. So let's make sure that we stay optimized for it. Number 4 is kind of what I was talking about earlier, which is managing your content. A lot of people really do think they launched this website a year ago and they don't touch it. And effectively doing that, it signals to Google that you don't care. And therefore, if given the choice between your website and someone who's frequently posting content, the one frequently posting content will beat you almost every single time. So there's an SEO advantage, but there's also an advantage to the users. If you're not utilizing your website, or you're not making changes, or you're not monitoring things, like maybe you are making changes, maybe you're adding blog after blog, but you have links in your blogs that don't go anywhere or that take people to an error, that creates a bad user experience, and the bad user experience means people leave. And so all of that kind of plays into, you want to be updating your site frequently, but you want to keep an eye on the stuff that you're updating. It is very easy for your SEO health to start out really strong when you launch, and over time, it gets worse and worse and worse. And all of a sudden, Google looks at your site and says, oh, they've got 800 links on there that don't go anywhere. It's no longer valuable, right? So when given a chance to rank, it won't, because you're basically signaling that I don't care whether this thing is accurate or not. So when you post a blog post, you might come back to that blog post 6 months later and update it. All of that stuff helps your users and helps Google. So you want to make sure that you're definitely doing content management and frequent updates to that site. Please don't let your website sit there with no activity. It literally renders it useless for the most part. So you want to make sure that you're doing the content updates and that you're keeping up with the SEO, at least from a health standpoint. Like, obviously, we recommend for almost every business to be doing active SEO work. But if you can't afford that, or that's not on your radar, you at least want to maintain that SEO health. You do not want to lose your health, because then starting that back up, you're starting at zero, and you don't really want to do that. And finally, like, one thing that gets missed a lot, and people will pay for these random services that do website updates or whatever. And what inevitably happens is there's no person there. A lot of companies will just hook AI up or hook some scanner or bot up, and that's all they do, and no human touches it. And what happens on those sites a lot of times is things like contact forms break, and all of a sudden your contact submissions don't make it to you. Part of our tune-up process, we will typically send forms, like to make sure that those forms are being sent. If we don't get a response back from our clients, it raises a question mark of, did they actually receive this, inquiry or not? Because mail servers do weird things, right? They randomly break down, or it thinks it's spam, or that's been blacklisted. There's just things that happen that stop mail. Well, if your whole business is dependent on your contact forms coming in, you want to make sure that you're testing them when you're doing your maintenance. Just looking at things like addressing any sort of user feedback that might come across, checking your site in different browsers or devices, to make sure that it's working on mobile. Like occasionally we get a site come in, doesn't load on mobile. They got a white screen. It's like if 80% of your traffic's mobile and you got a white screen, then again, you've kind of made your website not very helpful to your business. So maintenance is the core foundation of having a website. If you build a website and don't update it, don't maintain it, don't change it, there's not typically a whole lot of point in having it, because most of the time, unless people are looking for your name, they probably won't find your business. And therefore, all that work of making a website becomes just something that you spent money on, and it becomes like a business sunk cost instead of being an investment, which is what we're looking for. So if you need help maintaining an existing website, we would love to have a chance to look into that for you and see if your site's something that we can take on. If you happen to run on a platform like Squarespace or Wix or Duda or Shopify, some system that kind of self-regulates, there's still a lot of things that should be checked every month to make sure it's working properly. And if you don't have to spend money in those platforms, a lot of them, there is no hosting or maintenance, right? Which has its positives and negatives. There's ups and downs to having a self-hosted solution like WordPress versus having something like Duda or Squarespace or something like that. That's a whole other conversation. There's ups and downs. But even if your website self-maintains, you should still be doing frequent updates to that website. Just because it doesn't need a tune-up doesn't mean that you shouldn't be actively adding to your site. And if you don't know what to add to your website, or you're like, I don't really know, I have this site, it sits there, I'm not really sure what to do with it, that feels like a perfect opportunity to reach out to us or to somebody else that does marketing work to help you figure out, hey, this is what I really should be doing here. Because sitting a website there and doing nothing with it, it's just a big waste, guys. Like, I hate to see businesses are like, I don't know, my website's been there for 3 years, I haven't touched it. Basically, that means that for 3 years, nothing has happened. Like, your website started with a domain authority of 6, and now it's at 7.5, and everyone else you're competing with has a domain authority of 30. And you're like, I don't know, all of a sudden you need leads, you need business, you need people coming to the door, and you're like, I need SEO. Well, you had 3 years where stuff could have been happening and it just didn't. And now you're 3 years behind everybody else that started making that move. So I'm not saying you need to do expensive SEO. It's great if you can, and we'd love to do it, but you need to at least be making updates and changes and add into that website so that it becomes a valuable tool for your business. So if you don't know what to do and you need help, please reach out to us. Be happy to take a look at what you've got and see what we can do to help you. Don't miss out on these 5 key things. Like, something silly like having a backup seems like this really little thing, and it is a really little thing until you need it and you don't have it. And then it's a really, really, really big thing. We've had people in the past that have had to buy a whole new domain name because they didn't have access to their hosting. They didn't have a backup. They couldn't get into WordPress. Like, things happen. So you want to make sure that you just protect your business and protect yourself and save yourself trouble down the road. Spending money every month to keep the website moving is very, very, very much less expensive than letting it sit for a year, having a catastrophic teardown, losing all your data, and having to completely start over. I've spent a lot of time on video calls and phone calls with real tears from real people that have, you know, lost years and years of their work and lost years and years and years of momentum by making mistakes with website maintenance. So it's like for us, it's well, yeah, we have to maintain site. It's this very foundational structural thing, but go without it for a year and you find out really fast how doing the small things makes a really big difference. So keep your stuff maintained, make sure that you're making changes to your site, that you're updating it with content. And if you need help with any of those things, reach out. We'll be glad to help. Take care and thank you.